Stay up to date with LN 24/7. LN 24/7. With news, politics, business, sports, and more on LN 24/7. Where the story goes, we go.
All right, viewers, thank you for joining us on another Experience News Focus on your favorite station, LN 24/7. My name is Henry Williams, and we start today's story on the LN 247 website. And former chairman of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, while speaking to members of the press recently, stated unequivocally that the judicial independence has been trumped and appointments to the bench have been politicized. Human rights advocate admitted that recent appointments to the bench were largely influenced by a senior member of the bench, which he did not name, and appointments were made behind a series of closed-door meetings and backdoor handshakes between the judiciary and executive. Now, he argued that this misma predates contemporary judicial appointments, and has been lingering for decades. And he made reference to the Babalakin report of 1999. And these are the issues we will be wading into. Issues bordering on corruption allegations and the Nigerian judiciary, and also calls for reform. Let's take sound bites from Professor Odinkalu's statements, and we'll be right back.
The NJC goes through a process of provisioning, clearing provisioning for the judges. You've got to have the court halls, the salary, the vehicles, the basic provisions for their operations. They cleared 15. The circular was clear. They nominated 34. Of that 34, all but 11 were sons, daughters, mistresses of particular individuals. In one particular case, the original list was 33. I wrote the letter. I signed it in my name. I was not anonymous, so I can tell the story of what transpired. There were 33 nominees. Then a senior judicial figure who was about to leave the bench put his mistress in there, making them 34. She had not been interviewed. She had not gone through the process. And I wrote to President Buhari, to his credit. He listened and suspended the appointment of all of the people that we objected to. So he cleared the appointment of 11. And then something extraordinary happened. A senior justice of the Supreme Court was retiring and managed to get the NJC to bring back the list of those people who had been suspended. And the people who opposed that list were persuaded not to attend the meeting of the NJC. And this particular senior justice had their child in there, got the list approved, rushed to the president, all of them were appointed. They are now sitting on the bench, including the daughter of Justice Bukechua and Senator Adamu Bukechua. So judicial appointments have been totally captured. Politicians and judges make up and take up the appointments. And members of the NJC, if you give me the list of appointments, I will tell you who put the name in there. All I need is make not more than 3 calls. I will tell you whose candidate is on the list. From where? When you get to that point, to a point where good people, irrespective of where they come from, but suitable candidates can no longer make it to the bench, you know you're in trouble. And that is where we are. But it is not just because suitable candidates can no longer make it to the bench, and politicians now have decided that in order to have a successful political career, you need to carry a judge in your back pocket and in your bedroom. It is that to be able to proceed to anything in the country, judges and politicians decide what happens. So politicians no longer need our votes to become governors and presidents and legislators. They now need to settle judges only. It did not start today. If you want to know the origins, please go and read the Babalaki report. In the Commission of Inquiry into Fedeco, which reported in 1986. And if you don't have it, I can PDF my version. It's a little big. I'll make it available to the brand. But every lawyer interested in a country that works and judicial system that works needs to read the Babalaki report, because that is where the story of judicial corruption in politics was actually fully recorded. And I cite some of it in my written remarks. But it has been on since then. And in my written remarks, when you see it, you can check the footnotes as to some of the stories that have transpired from the Aramio constituency in 1979 elections down to Justice Ebuebu at the beginning of this millennium. But because this has a long history, we need to be able to reflect the memory. And having reflected that memory, then where are we right now? So this is how I start ending, because the story we have is a story of two things, or three things, as I said. One is hubris, the people who have captured the political system.
All right, and that is Professor Adin Kalu there, former chairman of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission, pointing to a rot, seemingly allegations of corruption in the Temple of Justice. You can get more on that story on the LN247 website, and other stories are trending in the news. Definitely, you will be glad you did. Just check it out. All the facts are there on what we'll be discussing today on News Focus. Well, glad to have my guest here in the studio. Justice Ogaino joins us on the show, a legal practitioner. It's Justice, great to have you. I almost said you're a medical practitioner, but yeah, it's good to have you, Justice, because this discussion borders on your constituency.
Yes.
And it would be very wrong for me to be talking to someone else on this matter, because charity begins at home. And to that effect, Professor Dinkalu's submissions or allegations are not quite savory. And it would be good to hear from the horse's mouth that is there rot in the Temple of Justice?
Okay, for me, I think that Professor Odinkalu, there's some level of treason, and I'm handicapped by the fact that I'm within the system.
Yeah.
He's outside of the system. In fact, I don't even think he's in the country.
Okay.
I think he's presently teaching at Tufts University as a professor or whatever capacity. So there are some things that he can say that I may not be able to say. And there are some exaggerations too that he can embark upon that I may not be able to embark upon. There are some sides of the coin that he has seen that I may not have been able to see. That it's possible that he has contacts that I don't have. But with respect to my practice...
No, they did make a boast that, you know, if you mentioned any appointment...
he's going to say who put the name there.
Tell you who put the name
there.
Well, that was very bold.
Yes, I may not be able to say whether it is true or not. But back to the matter of appointments judicially and the links of politicians to the judiciary. We have known that there is a saying that if men were good, there will not be any need for government. Okay. If men were angels, there will not be any need for government. And the way government is, it has been, different styles of government have been experimented upon, and it has come to light that democracy is still the best in town. And the way democracy works is there must be executive, legislature, and judiciary. And none of them fall from heaven. Some have to be appointed by some others in the same government, while some were elected to the positions. By election, I mean the legislature and the executive. But the judiciary, our own judiciary, we don't elect them. because we don't think we have gotten to that position where judges will campaign to the people and still at the same time uphold justice if they are not deciding for the sake of, in the interest of the persons that elected them. That brings the restriction of politicians being the ones to eventually appoint who holds a judicial position. So that's the tie and the nexus of politicians to judges. So because of that difficulty, yeah, in countries like America, there are situations where judges actually go to town to canvass for votes directly from the populace. But, and Japan, so I think Japan too practices that style too. But we have seen the drawbacks, the disadvantages of such systems, because those judges eventually pander to the people who either voted for them or who contributed to their campaigns.
And what about regulatory bodies within the system like the NJC? Can they be the ones to actually, elect these people?
They nominate.
Okay.
But again, we must remember that the NJC, out of 21 members of the NJC, the Chief Justice of Nigeria has 18 appointments.
On his own?
On his own. Out of about, I think, 21 or 23, but at least 18 has to be appointed by the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So there is no way you can use the word election in such a scenario, because it is anybody that wants, that person gets 18 votes immediately, and the person carries the day. What if there is no Chief Justice too, who now exercises that vote or that influence? So that puts our judges in a difficult situation sometimes. It's not peculiar to us. In America too, as of last week or about 2 weeks ago, one of the judgments from the American court was in favor of a woman who refused to bake cake for a gay couple. And immediately the judgment came down. Everybody was most of the people on the Democratic side, the left side, were crying to the high heavens that it is injustice, great injustice done to them. We can also remember that I think it happened earlier in the year too, when Roe versus Wade was overturned. The people on the left side, the Democrats, were screaming to the high heavens that, okay, states now have the right to determine.
So it's about interest to us.
So it's eventually about interest, because when Donald Trump entered into the office, he put in 3 justices on a panel of 9 justices. The Democrats kicked in the Senate, but all these justices went through. So that says that politicians will always have influence over the judges, because the judges too will always have influence to probably give the politicians whatever it is they want. But in Nigeria, we are not having the best of both worlds like maybe they are having in the US. Nigeria is not doing it that much. They are not doing it well, especially in the light of recent allegations. Let's even, okay, maybe we should start with
you are for reforms, right? Are you for reforms? Okay.
Fully for reforms. Let's even go back to the Basi Ipeme situation, where the night before the June 12 election was announced, or the election was announced, there was an injunction given by the judiciary, the judge of the High Court at the time, that that should not hold. And we know that that is expressly one marching order that was given to that judge by the dictator in power at the time. He moved, and we have seen probably a repeat of that over the course of the years. Okay. And it's been very, very unfortunate. So when it comes to judicial appointments, as much as possible, the NBA should, just like the American Bar Association, should be given the opportunity to grade the quality of persons that are being put into the offices. I, for one, will not say that because a person is the son or daughter of a judge, the person is automatically not qualified to be put on that position. But that shouldn't be the primary consideration for the person's qualification to that office.
There must be a transparent process.
There must be a very transparent process. Let the person apply just like the other people are applying. And if the person scores higher and above the other persons, the person should be given the position. So the person shouldn't just be disadvantaged by the accident of birth. We don't choose our parents.
Fantastic. You know, if you just joined us, looking at judicial reform against corruption allegations, our talking points revolve around public trust in the judiciary arm of government, also looking at calls for judiciary reforms. Also, we're looking at the state of the judiciary, implications on the ongoing election petition courts. How does this bear on that? Justice Ogaino is here with me, and meant to also have Kemios Omozivwe, legal practitioner, join us in this discussion to bring his own perspective into the issue. So I believe the control room will be reaching out to him right now, because his contribution will be definitely appreciated. Looking at the issue of the corruption in the judiciary, as Professor Dinkalu and some other stakeholders have pointed out, did not start today, and somehow, sadly, the politicians have found a way, you know, to rope in the judiciary in their illicit acts somewhat, according to reports. Now, let's look back at the, public officers in the judiciary, like the Attorney General, Buhari administration. We had the likes of Abubakar Malami there. Abubakar Malami, who a senior advocate, didn't leave that office without being trailed with a lot of allegations. Corruption. Let's chronicle some of those allegations, because we want to look at the office of of a judicial officer. It should be above board. I mean, there should be no hints of, there should be no shadow cast on. I mean, from the experience where we looked at judges, where we looked at the profession, and where you say, my brother, my learned friend, these are things that we hold very much high in esteem. And as the saying goes, this is the last spot of call of the common man. Look at Abubakar Salami in June 2019, appeared before. We're now looking at the corruption and professional misconduct allegations against him. In 2019, he appeared before a disciplinary panel of legal practitioners, privileges committee to face petitioners seeking stripping him of his SAN as senior advocate. And the case was dismissed due to procedural issues. Also had allegations of diversion of recoveries of funds. Now, in 2021, he appeared before House Committee to answer for suspected diversion of recovered laundered money intended for the consolidated revenue accounts. Also, alleged requests from Malami for payment approved solicitors' fees from recovered loot account, the Abacha loot. He was asking for, fees for a job that you're doing for a government that employed you. And he denied requesting payments from the recovered loot, but did not comment on the 2 billion naira payment from the CBN. Also, and just to add, in August 2021, the Attorney General of the 36 states sued Malami, accusing him of failure to allocate recovered funds to states. So the list goes on and on. How does this impact, does this go a long way to also, point that there is a challenge, there is a problem in the system? And looking at it right now, the new administration, Tinubu's administration, will be seeking to have a new attorney general. What do you think, how do you think, what kind of officer should be filling that place? And what do you think about all these allegations that were leveled against the past? Okay,
let me start with the allegations. Of course, they have to eventually be proven.
Yeah, they have to. That's why I say they are allegations.
But what is super superintended over that really got to me as a practitioner was, he was in office when all the atrocities against Onohen was committed against Onohen. It was while Malami was in office that the Supreme Court justices were harassed in their house, arrested in the night in their house. And we had
Gestapo style,
and we had a situation where a tribunal, Code of Conduct Tribunal, carried out shambolic proceedings in order to be able to truncate and insult and totally malign the office of the Supreme, of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. It was very, very unfortunate the way he went about that one and the way he watched the whole judiciary be put to shame and be put to reproach. And I, for one, want to, at this juncture, canvass for the separation between the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice. The Attorney General of the Federation should be made to be loyal to the people of Nigeria. The Minister of Justice can always be a politician, can remain on the cabinet of whoever is the executive and pander to the whims and caprices of the executive.
The Attorney General should be loyal to
the Attorney General should be loyal to Nigeria,
to the electorate,
and yes, to the electorate. The US can actually have the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice in the same person, but always remember
like
that
the President Buhari administration did.
Yes, but always remember that what distinguishes the US from Nigeria is that when they have particular and peculiar situations, they usually hire a special counsel to separate the politician in the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice, so that the special counsel will be able to, in an unbiased manner, look frontally into the eyes of the executive, including the president, and talk truth to power.
I think those were one of the pointers, suggestions that were made by Professor Dinkalu in his submission in that video.
I wasn't even aware of that.
He did make those
I wasn't aware of that. But I feel, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I feel that should be done. If even we want to retain the Attorney General as both the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, there should be the Office of Special Counsel, so that the state or the citizens of the state will not perpetually be at the mercy of politicians. Politicians have their interests. There are times when their interest doesn't align with the interests of the people.
And that's what we we really look to check with this discussion. How can we check the infiltration, if I may call it that way, with the hijack of the judiciary by politicians? We've seen that happen in other sectors as well. Sadly, we've seen it happen with the military. We've seen it happen in other climes. And the judiciary is so critical in the scheme of things. When we talk about the nation and talk about national unity, we talk about the issue of, we cannot talk about moving forward as a nation without the judiciary. I think the judiciary is more critical in the scheme of things than any other arm of government, because when people cannot seek justice and get it, we become a failed state.
True.
Somewhat or so. Because people repose, their rights in that judiciary. True. Doing that, they will get,
True.
Because when you deny people justice, they find out they cannot get justice, then they must find alternative means
to now be mob justice.
Which we have seen in the past, or which somewhat is happening. We'll be opening the phone lines for our viewers to join us right now. You can join discussion, and do remember when you call us, follow the rules of engagement. Please try and be circumspect, and do turn down the volume of your TV sets when you call us, so we can respond to you adequately and hear you. And please quickly make your points. Thank you very much. Looking at all these things we've been talking about, it is very interesting that this kind of damning allegations, come at a time when the nation is healing, trying to heal from an elections that somewhat were poorly conducted, ending up in the same scenario of having the courts having to decide the will of the people. And it is really not pleasant to hear such things. And I just hate to ask the question, but how does this, bear on, the election petitions going on? And we know we cannot discuss, the election, the cases because of, in legal claims. That's prejudice.
Yes. I totally agree with you.
Our lordships, are they under pressure, based on this kind of allegation?
Yes, one of the major things that the judiciary deals in as a dealer is confidence. If people don't have confidence in the judicial system, that system has actually failed. And if the judiciary fails, just like you alluded to earlier, the state has failed. It's unfortunate that we are having statements like the one made by the Senator
Bolkachua
in such a critical time
as this.
And it's also unfortunate that if even the best of men decide this election petition,
that is some like the dilemma that we are facing right now.
If even Jesus Christ comes down on this face of this earth to say that, okay, it is this person that won as against this person.
Some people will still,
in fact, more than half
protest against it.
The population will still call it injustice, and that is a sign that there is
something drastic needs to be done.
The judiciary is in ICU. That we need an ambulance seriously is in intensive care units to take care of.
And
of the
justice
judiciary.
Against that backdrop, do you think the judiciary lost the opportunity, or lordships lost the opportunity to actually take a step in the right direction to correct that perception by not allowing these proceedings to be televised?
Okay, you see, televising.
Because they should have with their full chests and saying, as we say in local, parlance, with your full chest.
True.
I will, preside over this in full glare of the stakeholders.
Yes, there are arguments for and against, and we have seen that in other climes too. I like drawing examples from the US, so it doesn't look like, okay, the market we are selling is a market in the dark.
And also internationally to also revamp our image in the international scene.
But if you observe, when Donald Trump he's facing 2 criminal charges now, there were the major TV stations in the US actually brought an action, CNNs of this world, Foxes of this world, they brought an action for the matter, especially the one in New York, to be televised, the first one where he was charged with the criminal offense. But the court actually turned it down. And some of the reasons why the court turned it down in the US is the same reason why the motions were denied in Nigeria, and it is to the effect as to avoid over-dramatization of events. And it's possible that persons who are not learned, or even persons who are learned, who have very wrong motives, can choose to give it terrible spins. If you don't know the ways of the courts are boring. It is not what we see on TV in the movies.
True.
The ways of the court are very boring and takes a certain strict procedure. If lawyers don't follow those procedures, and maybe a judge castigates them, you feel that, okay, this judge is already lopsided, or this court is already lopsided. That's on the part of the judge castigating. Lawyers who can take it to the extreme, and that was what the judges said.
You don't think we are matured enough for that?
I don't think so. Okay. If the U.S. courts too are saying they are not matured for that,
let's take this call. We have Oduak calling us from Abuja, the federal capital. Hello, Oduak. Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah, good afternoon. I can hear you clearly.
Good afternoon, Oduak. Please talk to us.
Yeah, good afternoon. I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. I really love the program. I just want to comment a little on the issue. You know, just like the lawyer on the station has said it all, the judiciary system in Nigeria is so high, being hijacked by the politicians. And the citizens are not happy about that. So I really want, or perhaps I pray that this Tinubu government shall do something more in the judiciary. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I pray they're going to work. They can, if the politicians, they can maybe make politics to be low or not much, business of the day as usual, but the way they can make it to be the politicians is not to hijack the duties of the judiciary. Because if you go in all, just like the barrister have said it all, if you go to court, Supreme Court, High Court, even Magistrate Court, you see that the politicians have placed their children, their nephews, their nieces, their cousins, even their concubines, in all the high places in judiciary system in all court. So I don't know how the government is going to work on this.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uduak. Thank you so much. Great submission, and he's made his point as well. He also is concerned about the judiciary, as we all are. And yeah, the politicians seem to have another game up their sleeves. And like some have pointed out, really not looking at the polls to decide who wins elections any longer. When you the story, the report is if you have a judge in your back pocket or in the other room, then you are good to win any election, and that has to change. That has to change. And we've seen examples that suggest that this is not just speculation. The Bukachua, scenario
yes,
as well.
There's also the Ayo Salami. If you recall the Ayo Salami situation too, I think the popular president of the Court of Appeal, that was one of the bases on which he was removed at the time, because he said that the Chief Justice at the time, Chief Kassina Alu and Mustafa, the second to the highest Chief Justice of the time, actually told him that one of the panels that he had, because he was the president of the Court of Appeal, that he had administrative control over, that they should decide in a certain way. They should dismiss the case of the PDP at the time. But he said no. And he said that was when his own problem started. You remember I was removed from office. Mm-hmm. And of course, when investigations were conducted, it was found to be innocent of the charges preferred against him, and he was eventually supposed to be reinstated, but he wasn't reinstated, and he eventually retired in the suspension mode. So it's not now. Okay. It's not with these politicians.
Okay, we have another call. Anocha calling us from Lagos. Hello, Anocha.
Hello.
Hello, Anocha. Thanks for calling us. Talk to us. Let's hear you.
On the comment they are saying about the judiciary, are you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead. We're listening.
This judiciary system in our country, it just starts from customary to federal. Because what is happening in Nigeria nowadays, there is no justice. They are buying justice with money. So if there is no money, there is no justice. So poor people are suffering so much in this country. We are suffering so much in this country. So money is the justice. When you don't have money, your case, you know that you are going to jail. Because there was a time they detained my in-law 11 years and 10 months without judgment. I fought a long before they release him. They are threat, they judge them. They say that they are armed robbers without nothing like anything, just a minor something.
Okay.
So I don't know how they can solve this judiciary system of court in Nigeria.
We're on it.
Okay, let me just talk on what he said. What he said is very, very fantastic, and it goes to a lot of misconstruing that goes on. People think that that's the role of the judiciary. I had a client that was discharged yesterday as not guilty after having spent 5 years and 4 months in the system. That is not the...
incarceration.
It is, yes, in incarceration, and he was found not to be guilty, 5 years, 4 months. So his own is more unfortunate, more than 11 years, even though I don't know what the verdict eventually was. So that is not the fault of the judiciary.
Okay.
People just feel that once anything is associated with the courts, it is the fault of the judiciary. It is the fault, things like that are the fault of the executive and the legislature, because they are the ones that make the laws, that make it to be like that.
Kindly explain.
You see, if a person is being held without, if a person is arrested, the person is arrested by the police, not by the judiciary. And the police is an arm of the executive arm of government. If the police detains the person for 2 years
and doesn't bring the person
to the court, you understand? It's still the fault of the executive. The law that is in place to allow the police to hold the person for that long without being punished is made by the is made by the legislature. So when the person is presented to the court, the lawyer to the state, who call state counsel, or the policeman, depending on whether it's at the magistrate court or at the high court, is still an employee of the Ministry of Justice. And the Ministry of Justice is an executive arm of government. So if they don't do their cases well, or they make the cases linger. The judge cannot, just in the interest of justice.
Just like we find the election petition.
Yes, if you don't prosecute your case well, if you don't present the proper witnesses, we cannot say that the judge is biased. So those are some of the challenges that we are having. A lot of people don't even know how to demarcate the roles of the legislature and the executive as distinct and different from the judiciary. So yesterday when I got the judgment that I got, I was very happy. I thanked the court for having considered my case very, very well, because at that point the judiciary had done what it was supposed to do, which is to wait and listen to all witnesses and all evidence as has been presented by both the defendant's counsel and the prosecution counsel. So
I am really concerned, about the judiciary, because we sit down and look at Nigeria critically, and we realize that some of the things that our politicians have gotten away with is because the judiciary seem to have been in a coma, or seem to have been held back somewhat. And how can we unleash the judiciary to do its job the way it's supposed to do it? Where do we need to start? Now, we see a new dispensation coming, and the president's still appointing, people into his cabinet. And one of the critical, sectors is judiciary. And just have you pointed out that there has to be separation from the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation. What are the kinds of names? We've seen names being bandied, and if I may check, one of the names that were being bandied for a Tinubu administration, I don't know if you know them, Dr. Hassan Liman.
Yes.
Dr. Hassan Liman, and for Attorney General, and Babatunde Ogala for Solicitor General.
Okay, I don't know.
What can you say about this?
I don't know why Babatunde Ogala is taking a position of Solicitor General because he's a gladiator.
Okay. When you say gladiator,
when it comes to litigation.
Okay.
But Dr. Hassan Liman, sometimes when you're taking when you're forming your cabinet, is a matter of negotiation. It could be that some political interests are being satisfied with the
political appointments.
Yes, with the Dr. Lima. You understand? But if it's who is a more aggressive, bullish fighter, it would have been a Babatunde Ogala. But it's not bad that for the first time we're having the Solicitor General is even a person that has a name.
Okay.
Before now, it's only the Attorney General that we know. Okay. But this time it's looking like the Solicitor General is also a prominent person, and they can form a duo, a tag, in order to be able to sanitize our Ministry of Justice and You know, the position of the Attorney General is very, very critical. See the financials, some of the financials we talked about with respect to Malami. These are people too that will be saddled with it. Some of the contracts that Nigeria has entered into, some of the debts that we are owing. So it will be people who are smart that are going to be saddled with negotiating on our behalf, fighting on our behalf, deciding, okay, we should get amnesty.
Pick the best team, so
how to pick the best team, because even they are not just politicians, and this is the difference. We saw a Festus Keyamo. It would have been a total mismatch if you make a Festus Keyamo the head of justice in Nigeria, Attorney General of the Federal, because he's more of a politician.
And he wouldn't have minded,
He would have loved it. He would have loved it, but I know that in the interest of fairness and competence, he's too much of a politician. He doesn't mind. His word doesn't really carry so much weight. His word doesn't really mean much to him.
Especially from history, when you come back from the statements he's made in the past and you try to put both together. So somebody who is a legal luminary should be someone of his word.
Absolutely.
We should have a track record.
Absolutely, and we should be able to learn law from you as an Attorney General. Yes, he has some battles that he has actually fought. He did some things in the mold of Ganifa, but to a large extent, he looks like he has bargained with his honor. So yeah, I don't want to say he has thrown some of them to the dogs.
Let's look at some of the issues that this has raised. The likes of legal luminary, senior advocate of Nigeria as well, Are Afe Babalola, recently said sitting judges should not preside over election petition tribunals, and suggested that retired judges and respectable SANs should constitute tribunal judges so that cases, other cases don't suffer.
Okay, for me, I have a challenge with. Of course, I have to first of all defer to the one of the,
the giants.
Giants, 60 years at the bar. That's way before I was born. So he has strong points, but I beg to differ. If I were in court, I would have said, I would have first of all respected him and said, I humbly beg to differ. With respect to the senior advocate path, because we know that the path to senior advocateship, no matter how honorable they are, a lot of them have had dealings with these politicians. They have interest. They have their heavy biases. Senior advocates are not made in the mold of judges. They are not trained to have the demeanor, the kind of elusiveness. Judges don't associate, they don't mingle that much. Senior advocates, we don't know the kind of bargains that they have caught all along the way, and especially nowadays that before you can become a senior advocate, you really have to play ball. So I don't agree with the senior advocate part of it. Even the retired judges part of it, we must know that one of the reasons why they are retired is because they are waning in physical strength. And some of them in mental strength. So because of that, if even we are taking retired judges, it has to really, really be retired judges that still have their mind sound. And I don't mean to disrespect people who are becoming senile as a matter of age, because at some point, most people will actually succumb to.
But you do agree that civil cases will suffer as a result.
100%. 100%. Even some of the courts we go to now, the courtrooms have been taken over by tribunals, because even some judges are having to do shifts in order to be able to handle cases that are before them. So very 100% I agree. There should be more hands brought in for this purpose. And we have also specifically talked about there being special election courts and election tribunals to be able to handle these kind of matters. And in handling some of the advantages of having a dedicated election court is whoever is the judge there, whoever is the panelist, is not hearing election matters for the first time. or he's not even hearing it once every 4 years. It is what he does every day. So he knows the questions to throw, he knows how to process whatever it is an election lawyer is telling him. So things like that should also be refactored into it. And we have also said that in electoral matters, INEC should not be part of the defense. As much as possible, INEC should be a third party, because that is a major issue when it comes to election litigation.
Interesting. In your view, on the process being employed in appointment of judicial officers, do you agree that it is inept and something has to be done, especially the political appointments?
Yes, I think that more vetting should be put in place. Just like I illustrated earlier, two major ways that judges are appointed one is by election, which is very clear that one will even be worse. If that is the case in Nigeria, elect directly. Imagine the Chief Justice of Nigeria campaigning in one part of the country. Some parts will vote for him, some parts will not vote for him. So however he decides, everybody will feel that, okay, he's decided in favor of the parts that voted for him. So that's number one. So number two is they have to be appointed. So appointed by who? They're appointed by the politicians, unfortunately, the executive, unfortunately, and that's where the checks and balance, principles of checks and balance come in again, and separation of powers. One appoints another, one swears another, and without the chief justice, the president, you won't be able to swear the president in. Without the chief judge, you can't swear in the governor. The legislature has to be there before you can remove, not suspend, remove the chief justice. So that's the intertwining that is there in order to ameliorate the fact that, okay, it's a politician that's saddled with the final responsibility of actually appointing who the judge is or the justice is. Our situation is even better than the US, and it goes back to when we talk about the fact that we have better laws than some of these countries. It's just their institutions that actually that make them stronger and stand firmer. By that I mean, see the US example. The president of the United States doesn't even have to wait for the recommendation of anybody. In fact, in the US, it's lobbyists that choose who the next Supreme Court justice is. Then they push it to the president, and the president chooses, and then just pushes it to the Senate. And if they have the majority in the Senate, like Donald Trump had, they will succeed. And if they don't have, just like the current Garland, the current Attorney General of the U.S., was nominated by Obama to be a justice of the Supreme Court. But the Republicans, because they had the Senate, Mitch McConnell turned it down. But we have the NJC that actually recommend first to the president. So that's a buffer. That's one of the checks.
Checks, okay.
To holding the president from just choosing anybody.
When it seems that when it seems like the politicians have gotten to the NJC, then that becomes a.
There's also seniority. There's also seniority as a. Usually, the NJC is also controlled by the fact that they have to choose. So they are even their choosing is a formality. They have to choose the next most senior judge or justice in rank to the person that just retired. Okay. It's only in few cases that they break that rule. Okay, look at this. Let's look at the issues now.
There's so much to unbundle, to unpack in this issue. How do we defend the judiciary? Because judiciary right now is under siege. Is it the responsibility of Nigerians to defend the judiciary, or has the judiciary more or less been complacent in the sense of that it has what it takes to fight for this democracy? I mean, we've seen other sectors go on strike or go on a protest and say, we will down tools if government does not do this. Based on some stakeholders who have called, they say, state of emergency in the judiciary, that, look, we've reached a tipping point and we need to do something fast. doesn't the judiciary have what it takes to pull this country back and put it on track, considering the fact that we've seen a lot of abuse from different administrations in terms of abuse of rule of law. I must give it to President Buhari, because he tried in his own effort to actually give the judiciary more power in strengthening the institution when he tried to cut them off from the apron strings of government and say, look, the funds, they should be directly, and the governors, they kicked against it. So is it time the judiciary should wake up? And when we talk about, we keep talking about as if we have, there's nothing we can do. Meanwhile, there's so much we can do. I think I hold the judiciary, I see the judiciary as so powerful, because without it, other nations will not even relate with us in the first place. True. Because there will be no basis of engagement.
True. Okay, first, we must always remember...
They are the ones who even swear in the presidents of the day.
Yes. We must always remember that the judiciary is the third arm of government. There is a reason why legislature is section 4, executive is section 5, and judiciary is section 6. The judiciary comes last. We usually say that judiciary is the toothless third brother, because the strength of the judiciary is in the obedience to the orders that the judiciary actually gives. We saw that Malami really bastardized, and was a shame, was a disgrace to the judicial arm of government as the chief law officer of the state, pursuant to section 150 of our constitution, when he flagrantly disobeyed a lot of the decisions of the judiciary. He really puts the judiciary in a state of disrepute. Yeah, a number of administrations have tried it, but his was really the highest. So by that, I'm trying to say that the judiciary can only do its best by making pronouncements. As little as Emefiele was, the head of an agency of government, which CBN was, because he had presidential backing, he disobeyed. When the Supreme Court of Nigeria, you see, what happened was the Supreme Court giving an ex parte injunction is a very, very rare thing. Most decisions that the Supreme Court give are fully litigated. You don't just go to the Supreme Court on the same day and get something on the same day. But this one, the full panel, 7 justices of the Supreme Court, gave an order. Then the head of an agency, because he feels that he's backed by the executive, and the judiciary doesn't have its own police. It still has to depend.
That should have been the one that broke the camel's back.
It's very, very unfortunate that was what happened, and we have myriads of these kind of scenarios.
Justice, we have to go. And we hope that justice has been served today as we discuss these issues, and we hope we waded into these issues. We've been able to bring out something that should actually trigger, a change, trigger, our consciousness that something drastic needs to be done. I want to thank Justice Ogena for joining me on the show. Great to have you on the program, Justice, and to thank our viewers who stayed with us, and those of you who called and tried to. Do appreciate your calls, and thank you for calling us. Don't forget that we're always here to bring you latest developments. My name is Henry Williams, and I want to thank you. Don't forget you can find us on all platforms, different platforms, and including at www.ln247.news. Don't forget that website is a window to the world. So we'll definitely see you on another edition of News Focus. It's bye from us for now, and God bless you. Take care.